Hi, Elsa. Good morning. I agree with you. I think we can start. I can see that people are still joining, but I think that the agenda is rich. So I would briefly like to give to the people that are with us today a very short description of the concept of this webinar. And then I would like to leave you to you, Asa, to share with all of us our hope for this day. And well, basically this 2-hour webinar is about understanding the system, which is one of the main steps of the CCC process. And in these 2 hours, we would like to share with you two different perspectives, let's say, on what it's possible to do in cities to map the system, and also some concrete examples from peers, let's say. We will have first Julio Hombreras that will try to share with us a perspective on cities as system, and then we will have tools and concrete projects about system understanding, and we will have some interaction with Mentimeters. And in the second part, we will have 4 cities that will tell us what they are doing in order to understand the system. Asa, what do you think? Would you share with all of our colleagues here what we would like to achieve today?
Yeah, I think it's very interesting to be here today and to explore one core part of the journey for cities to become climate neutral. And this understanding the system is all about how can we take a holistic view on how the change in cities need to happen for us to be able to do the journey to climate neutrality and sustainable cities much faster than today. So one tool that we have developed in NetZeroCities in order to understand and visualize the journey is what we call the Climate Transition App. And for those of you who have been on board for a while now, you know that this is part of the webinar series on the Climate Transition App as a tool to visualize the journey to climate neutrality. We've heard about mandate setting in one seminar, ecosystem development, and now we're about to explore understanding the system. And next up is on the 4th of October on co-creating a portfolio. And as Francesca said, we had an excellent lineup of speakers, including from 4 different cities. And what we'd like to do is share with you perspectives about cities as systems. How can we understand this together? And learn also from tools and initiatives that can help us in making this transition happen, both for citizens and by citizens. And to help through visualizing and understanding systems to get the mandate setting, co-creating the portfolio, and getting the local systems all on board in making the transition happen faster. So without further ado, I'd like to give the floor to Julio Hombreras. And please, Julio, if you can just shortly tell us about who you are, and you will present a perspective of systems as a way to understand cities. Over to you, Julio.
Thank you so much, Osa. Thank you for inviting me to speak, and thank you all everybody that joined the session today. So very briefly, I'm professor at the Technical University of Madrid in Spain, and I'm part of the NetZeroCities consortium. I was one of the mission board members when the mission was created, and now working in Spain on the national platform, coordinating the platform that's supporting the 7 Spanish cities in the mission, and also attracting new cities like viable cities in Sweden. In fact, we learned a lot from you, Osa, and your team, and we very much appreciate all your support. So just they asked me to talk for 10 minutes about the city as a system of systems, and it's just a reflection. So please go ahead. Yes. So what I want is to reflect why people go to cities, which is mainly because cities offer services to people, and how these services are provided, and just to understand a bit how everything is interconnected. And then to think about this, I would ask you to think for some seconds about one day in your life, right? Imagine yesterday, from the beginning of the day when you wake up till the end of the day. And please go ahead. If you think of all the services that the city is providing you, for example, you wake up with probably a cell phone that needs electricity. Then you take a shower that needs water and heating. Then you take a breakfast, you need food, you need electricity, you need probably gas. Then you go to work. And then you have to commute, you have to use transportation, either walk, bicycle, car, bus, train. And then you go stay work and you need electricity, and then you have lunch and you go to restaurant or the canteen, and then you also need lots of things. Then you come back and maybe you go to the cinema or to do some jogging to a green area, or maybe you have a health problem and you have to go to the hospital or to see a doctor or whatever. And so at the end of the day, in the city, you are receiving lots of services. And that's why people are moving to cities mainly, right? Apart from jobs, which is maybe the main driver, of course, opportunities for people, you can think that the city is providing what we can say material services like food, water, energy, housing, waste management, and so forth, but also social services, right? We go to cities also because they have good education, because we want our kids to go to the best schools, because we want to go to the university. We also go to cities because they have a good healthcare system, right? And cultural issues and public safety. So this combination of services is what the city is offering us, right? And in the end of the day, we can see the city as a flow, right? Where there is lots of entrance inputs in the city, materials. No, please go, sorry, previous one. So you can see on the next, yeah, thank you. On the low part of the slide, so there is materials and energy entering into the city, then the city offers services, and then the city is producing waste, and we have to manage this, and hopefully we can, you know, do circular economy and trying to reintroduce some of this waste as input in the city as well, right? So that's the idea of the city as a system of systems, because, and then go ahead, Francesca, and thank you so much for your support. So we can think of this, of all these services, but these services are interconnected, right? So for example, if we think on education, let's think on a school or a university. That's a service, of course, a school, but the school wouldn't work without electricity, without buildings, without a heating system, without water for the toilets, without food for the canteen, without a mobility system to move kids to school and to etc. Right? So everything is absolutely interconnected. We cannot think of one of the services without the others, right? And that's why we say that the city is a system of systems. And that's why when we normally tackle or address city problems sectorally, only thinking on one sector, then things doesn't work. Because if you think of mobility just as mobility without connection with buildings, without connection with green spaces, without connection with food and education and so forth, then you cannot really transform a city. And that applies to all the services or sectors, right? And that's the idea. And when, please go ahead. And when we have in front of us such a hard goal like being climate neutral, a city, as you part of this mission, city's mission, then we have a goal which is being climate neutral by 2030. And we know that incremental approaches are not working. So we cannot just develop new projects, pilots, and try to just upscale them in an incremental way. We need to unlock exponential change, right? And this only will happen with a systemic approach, because when we try, go next please, when we try to develop even very, very nice tools like, you know, system thinking, trying to develop initiatives in the city, then what happens is that we need this change at a pace, at a speed and a scale that it's unprecedented. So we need to change our cities in 8 years, so very fast, and the whole city, right? And when we try to use traditional approaches, then we face with barriers, lots of barriers, and you are experiencing this. You face with regulatory barriers, you face competing incentives, you face market problems, you face media backlash many times, you face cultural norms. So there is lots of, you find like a wall as it is shown in this slide, right? And the problem is that we tend to develop some initiatives that are disconnected. So what we suggest and what we are trying to do within NetZeroCities and within the mission is first, go next please, Francesca. First, think like a system, but act a bit like an entrepreneur. So try to hack the system. Try to find the holes of the wall that can really upscale solutions that can really produce massive change from your perspective, from your position, which is important. So if you are a member of the city council, you have tools. Maybe you can change regulation. These are examples. So for example, you can offer free parking for electric vehicles, and then just this small thing, which is just a change in the regulation, can really foster a transformation, because it can attract lots of you know, products and services in the city and so forth. So first, think like a system, act as an entrepreneur. And next, please. If we see this, the city as a system of systems is like a spider web, right? And if we want to change and break the spider web, think of a spider web. You push in 1 point and it doesn't break. You push in 2 points and it doesn't break. You push 3 points and it doesn't break. You need to push very different points, and simultaneously you cannot push one and then another to break it down, right? And that's the idea. So you need to identify leverage points in the city and then develop a portfolio approach that is cross-sectoral, so touching all the sectors and all leverage points to really break the system, or not break because it sounds bad, but transform and evolve and improve the system. And always with a learning by doing approach, because you can maybe start with some points and maybe that they don't work and you need to try another and so forth. And in summary, what we are trying to do in NetZeroCities and in the mission, Francesca, please go ahead, is, no, first, only the first one. Great, thank you. So that's the idea at the city level, right? So, and that's what we are trying to do in the city pilots that they call that it's now open, and also with all the work. So try to find a way to develop this portfolio of actions, which will be part of the, I mean, in total, the climate action plan, that is touching all the sectors. You can see here the typical sectors, right? So industrial processes, transport and mobility, energy, green areas and buildings and so forth, right? So developing actions that touch all together different sectors, but using simultaneously different levers, right? Regulation, but not only governance, technology, capabilities, creating capabilities, finance tools, so like fiscal incentives and so forth. And this combination, this portfolio of actions that are touching all sectors using all levers, that's the only way to really transform the system. And that's at the city level, but we all know that we cannot do this together. We cannot do this just in the city and then go to next, please, Francesca. We need to do this with everybody. And with everybody means first working not only at the local level, but with regions, with our regions in Europe, and we know that most of these services rely on regions. So transport is a metropolitan issue, energy, it's a regional issue, and so forth. So we need to work with regions, we need to work with member states, with the national governments, and we need to work with the European Commission. And that's the idea of the mission, this multi-level governance. So working together at all levels, with all levels of government, and also with all the stakeholders, working with the power of working with private sector, working with civil society, working with academia, with research centers. So the only way to transform the system is to work simultaneously in a portfolio of actions, but working with everybody at all different levels. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Julio. I think we will have a lot of thinking from this. It can be quite overwhelming to think of a city as systems of systems, but I think that one aspect of this is that we need to be very kind of humble towards the different context in the different cities and hack, as you said, Julio, hack the system in order to transform it according to the context in each city, in each region, in each nation, etc., etc. But thank you so much, Julio. And now we're going a little bit kind of up and down in the elevator here, because now we have the opportunity to listen to a project that is about kind of capturing the city system from a noise perspective, which is quite interesting. And it's kind of an interesting way of looking at the city from a citizen perspective. And with us to introduce this is Ed Sinnott and Jane McLaughlin, that are our city advisors within the NetZeroCities initiative. So I would like you, Ed and Jane, just to say a few short words of who you are, just as an introduction. And over to you.
Thank you, Åsa, and hello everybody. My name is Ed Sinnott, and as Åsa has already said, I'm a city advisor with the program, and I know that some of the cities that I'm going to be working with are on the call today. So hello. And prior to being in this role, I collaborated with Jane McLaughlin in a private capacity as consultants known as the Luna Works and Tynos Consulting. And this project comes from that experience. The most recent example of our work within a European program, which was on the Synchronicity project. And I'll hand over to Jane to say a little bit more about that.
Thanks very much, Ed, and thanks, Åsa, for the introduction as well. Yes, so my name is Jane McLaughlin, one of the city advisors with the NetZeroCities program, and part of the EuroCities team. And yeah, so we'd like to just give you a little bit of an overview of this project that we called Noisability, and perhaps if you can move on to the next slide. And that's a quick intro slide, so we'll jump to the next one again. So yeah, that's it, cool. If we just go forward to that one. So Noisability was a rapid project that we ran, which was part of the Synchronicity Horizon 2020 large-scale IoT pilots. The idea was obviously one of the thematic areas was around noise, and at an initial level we were thinking obviously that was looking at noise pollution. What we wanted to do was move from noise to sound, to thinking about sound, and building on Julio's fantastic presentation a few moments ago, you know, this really, they do work well together, we think, because in fact, although obviously the focus was around demonstrating interoperability of IoT and demonstrating tech and all that sort of good stuff, in actual fact, we feel very much that you know, IoT and tech is nothing without people, and that the point is about how people use these systems and how people want to interact in the city as well. So we worked, our role was, we were strategic partners on the pilot. We worked first of all with our 3 cities to scope with them how they wanted to understand sound in the city and the context that they had within that. So we designed, together we designed a pilot where we wanted to focus on how citizens feel about sound in the city and how we could map that in the context of sensed data. So we focused on crowdsourcing as a technique, among others, to sort of map different aspects, which we'll talk about in a moment. But obviously at the core of that, underneath it all, was this idea of interoperable data. So if we could move to the next slide, please. So we had we worked with 3 cities, Bilbao, Edinburgh and Eindhoven. 3 really fantastic locations in each of these cities, all with sort of some similarities, mixed-use urban spaces, lots of different types of sound, quite high density. The cities themselves had a lot of synergies in terms of being, you know, small-ish, with lots of influx of tourism, lots of mixed activities going on, and also in the process of various forms of regeneration. So we wanted to carry out an activity to do this rapid capture and mapping of perception and acceptability of sound. So as I say, we had 3 cities. From a technical standpoint, we used 19 sensors in the 3 cities locations. We had 4 in-person workshops. And during the period, a 6-week period of data collection, we managed to capture 6,000 citizen data points, which we achieved through co-creating a very simple kind of digital tool to capture citizen perceptions about sound. How do you feel about the sound? And we also, from a technical standpoint, used 4 different transport layers. So there were multifacets to this pilot, as I say. So perhaps we can move to the next slide, please. And I'll pass to my colleague Ed.
Thank you, Jane. And as a strategic partner for the project, one of our key responsibilities was to shape how we were going to engage with cities and citizens in the context of services. So just as Julia was saying, the service and the disservice of noise to sound is a really interesting idea. So first of all, we had to define the locations. What could be a reasonable location to map and measure? And of course, we identified 3 very highly social spaces, but also places where people lived, and there were also businesses there. We then needed to think about moving from noise to sound. So cities often think about noise in terms of decibels and time of day. When noise gets too loud, and at certain times it becomes unacceptable. But we wanted to think behind that and think about, when does sound become unpleasant for people? Because it's not always about decibels. So we needed to look at frequencies. We then needed to think about, well, who are the people who are using these spaces? So again, we talked about residents and businesses and students and tourists and local leisure seekers from other parts of the city. We then needed to think about what ecosystem we were working within. Who were the stakeholders who were involved? Residents groups, business associations, owners, etc. And then, of course, we needed to think about the cultural interpretations of how to engage with citizens locally. And there were quite different challenges there in the 3 cities. We co-created a digital online tool, as Jane said, to capture the real-time perceptions of citizens, which we called the philometer, because it really was, how do you feel about that sound right now? And then we used a process largely of getting people on the street to stop and ask people passing through about how they felt about the sound they could hear in that location at that time. And so next slide, please, and over to Jane.
Thank you very much. And just to give you a quick snapshot of the sorts of things we asked people in that data capture process, we made it very simple and engaging. We had this translated into 4 languages for the 3 cities. We also had a range of, they had little QR codes they could link through to, and so they were in some of the local businesses put them in on show as well. So we looked at different areas, having mapped this with our cities, you know, for example, Plaza Nueva in Bilbao, for those who know it, you'll know that it doesn't have any traffic. It's a pedestrianized area. So that was obviously not relevant for the Bilbao data capture, but for others, it was highly relevant as their major thoroughfares. So we looked at people and hostelries and music and animals. So animals covered, for example, some people love to hear the sound of birdsong, which is fantastic. But for instance, again, in Plaza Nueva, they also regularly have a bird market that is not such a positive sound for some people. They find that quite frustrating. We asked, when did you hear the sound? We captured that perspective about timing around that, and how often do you hear it? How long does it last? How loud is it? And how do you feel about the sound? And interestingly, one of the sounds that turned out to be the most enervating for people was, again, using Plaza Nueva as an example, but was in fact the scraping of the tables and chairs across the cobbles at the end of the night when the bars and restaurants were shutting. It wasn't the bars and restaurants themselves, it was just that sound. And so helping the city to understand that that's something that they could work with the businesses around is a really useful sort of outcome. So if we can move to the next slide, please. And just to give you a flavor of what we captured and how we captured this, this is where you'll see all our little smiley faces in the 3 locations. It really was great to be able to plot that really specifically to particular hotspots or aspects of these very sort of small areas where our sensors were capturing sense data to go with the perception. And then in the bottom right hand corner there, you'll see that we, this is a little snapshot from the technical partner we worked with, an organization called Urban Tide, based in Scotland. They were building this into, they were developing the algorithms and the AI and the machine learning to bring together this sense data that we had from the IoT sensors combined with the citizen perception that we had to then create algorithms to understand where is an acceptability level within the city around this this sound. Where do residents feel or others feel this is generally okay, but not so much on this point. So that was that sort of mapping process that was happening there. Perhaps we could move to the next slide, please. I'll pass back to Ed.
So I think that for the purposes of today, what's interesting about this pilot is not the fact that we achieved some technical breakthroughs, which we in fact did, because we created a new data model to support sound rather than just decibels to be considered in the context of interoperability from sense devices. But that we achieved a significant amount in 6 months across 3 cities. But that actually what we really did was kind of break a bit the model or the nostrum, which says whenever you go and talk to citizens, you need to take a workshopping based approach. And what we said was, no, we want to democratize that. We want to actually get more input, and we want to understand that in a nuanced way. How can we use crowdsourcing techniques to get as much nuance as possible, which we can then workshop to understand and contextualize the outcomes? And we did both of those things in a very short period of time. But also, what possibilities does it open up for thinking about scapes generally in the city? Soundscapes, airscapes, greenscapes, urban heat islandscapes. How do we engage citizens actively in understanding what cities have capacity for and where things need to be downscaled? So, for example, in the context of sound and noise, is it possible to say, look, this part of the city has capacity to take more sound and more noise. This part of the city actually needs, its soundscape needs to be reduced. How can we use it in the context of very nuanced ways when we're thinking about meanwhile spaces or quiet spaces or green areas? In one of the cities that we worked with, much of the green space is heavily saturated with leisure, with active leisure type activities like bands and so on, and the soundscape is completely saturated. So these are the kind of strategic opportunities to use crowdsourcing and mapping techniques in the context of understanding the ecosystem. And I think given the shortness of the pilot, it was both a barrier and an opportunity. It was a barrier to being able to take something that was rapidly prototyped to roll out in a more I guess systemic way. But on the other hand, it was an opportunity to demonstrate that we could do something that quickly. So as a mapping technique, I think we demonstrated that we can achieve a lot with the right kind of tools, mapped and matched with the right kind of strategy to engage and involve local citizens in their communities and understanding their approach to their communities with some considerable nuance. And I think that might be our last slide. Mm-hmm. There we are. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ed and Jane. If you were to summarize some of the kind of most powerful learnings for kind of the climate transition of cities with this kind of collaborative prototyping with the collective effort, what would that be?
I think what I would say is that we need to be asking people what they feel about things in a nuanced way. We can't assume that technical measurement of external realities is how people feel about their communities. And in that one example of the Edinburgh one, I don't know if sharp-eyed people will have noticed that community satisfaction with the noise and levels of happiness did not actually directly map to decibels, for example.
Yeah.
And that we can get a much richer experience of our communities by not being afraid to open up to diversity and richness of experience, and that actually can strengthen our responses at a hyperlocal level, which can only be a good thing, I think. And so we can apply that kind of mapping approach to other issues where, as I said, scapes, where there are enveloping challenges in cities.
Yes.
And I would just add to that and say that the citizens and the participants themselves were really keen on that process. It was not, it was much more about a collaborative process that they were looking to support and to be part of, and they really valued having that different kind of input, being asked different questions in a way than perhaps often is the case, and being able to participate in that discussion. So it was really constructive.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Ed and Jane, for giving us these perspectives and a lot of things to think about in terms of understanding systems for climate transition. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So I'll now invite our next inspirational speaker, who will be Nils Jansen from Ellery Studio, who work on design processes and visual tools for mapping systems. So this is also kind of another thought-provoking, interesting way of thinking about systems. So over to you, Nils.
Thank you very much. I'll start my presentation. So I hope everybody can see it. Thank you for the invitation and the opportunity to tell you something about our experiences on mapping, coloring, and designing carbon neutral futures.
I think you have the wrong format for your presentation, Nils. We
Pardon?
can see the text and we can see the next slide as well.
Okay, sorry. I have to change them from the...
Sometimes it helps to put it in presentation mode and then share. I don't know if that will help.
So I will another try. So hope that's better.
That's much better. Thank you, Nils.
Thank you. So I'm really glad to see so many people who are giving so much effort to make a change in cities and transformation. And I hope everybody's well. And so make you feel at home, get comfy, and I will rush through a presentation with some 40 slides in 10 minutes. So, but I think you don't have to be afraid. So as said, my name is Nils Jansen. I'm studied political science and future studies at the Freie Universität here in Berlin. And I will tell you something about right design and communication. You might think political science, future studies, communication, perfect fit. We will see. So Ellery Studio, I'm working at. Ellery Studio is working at the intersection of knowledge, design, and anticipation. So our core fields are sustainabilities, social justice, and transformative action. So more or less the challenges cities have to cope with on the way to net zero. When picking up the newspaper in the morning and faced with all the bad news and doomsday scenarios, one is tempted to hide under its cover. And so the question is how to overcome this feeling, become active again, and flexing your personal agency muscle. So our approach is using infographics and making climate action and transformation fun. So, and when done properly, we are sure magic can happen. So we're sure that centering communication on people makes sense. So we had a thought, what if we had a way to communicate the stories of for example, energy transition in an optimistic and engaging format, so that people can have fun with it. So our experience was from our seminars and workshops and some participatory formats that we wanted people like something they can carry around with them and have fun with. So it's not always the narrative that's the problem on energy transition, for example, but the formats can be problematic too. So there's great research out there, but the research papers often hidden behind paywalls, and they are not much fun to read, even for experts. So we wanted to produce something that connects with the people and get them to understand and care on a personal level. So after all, change can start with a single person in a single neighborhood, then spreads to the city and from city to city. So that was the basic idea. So we opted for the probably most chilly format ever, a coloring book. So you can think of Energy Mandala. So we call it the infographic energy transition coloring book. And the idea was, we had in mind to reach the pupils. We went to the Berlin streets on the Fridays for Futures demonstrations and the other events, as well as some high-level politicians. So we put up this poorly photoshopped picture with Angela Merkel and doing the coloring book, and that was our motivation. So we wanted to visualize for our own goal. So that is one page of the energy transition coloring book. As you can see, we have the big picture on the one hand, where you are provided with background knowledge about energy consumption, and the more you color it, the more obvious the informations get. So you're designing the informations on your own. And we have graphics which are more on an individual scale, and especially dealing with issues cities have. For example, the mobility issue. Or sustainable mobility, and how you can go there, and how things are developed. So the approach, the idea was pretty straightforward. We take the reports, do some sketches, and transform this the scientific reports into infographics. And so everybody can design and create the book on its own. So it's agency again, and dealing with the subject. So it started with lots of sticky notes and collecting suitable topics and visualizations of ideas. And we fortunately had a good partner. We had a scientific partner, the ICAM, Institute for Climate, Energy and Mobility, we worked closely together with. So then we did many trials of the visualizations, and these are some early sketches, and some of them made it into the book, and many didn't. And then we did some proper beta testing. So this is our chief usability tester. She's called Lara, and she's really a true master of her profession. And she showed us what worked and what didn't work. So, and after all, in the end, when we finally got the coloring book printed, it paid out well, and we were able to hand it to the US ambassador, Richard Grenell, who isn't really known to be very who has some problems with climate issues, let's say. And after a year and winning some awards on the way, we could hand one to Angela Merkel. So, and that's my question. Have you ever seen Angela smile? So this is the power of infographics, we are thinking. And we didn't even stop with her, because this summer we had on the Eastern German Economic Forum, we had the chance to hand one to the next chancellor, and I think we won't stop at that. So, but what about the other target group we wanted to reach, the people themselves? We had the chance to hand it out to coal miners in German region of Lausitz. It's a transformation region where the mining will stop soon. And the book helped to create a dialogue with the otherwise very skeptical audience. So we don't know if we can change their minds, but at least we did build a little bridge for the communication where there was little to nothing before. And this leads to a second project I want to show you. That's our atlas we made on the German energy sector. It's energy net or grid, and yeah. And it's a real atlas in forms of content and in form of size. So this is a real big book. And the people told us beforehand, well, mapping the energy sector in Germany, that's far too complex and complicated, and no one will be ever able to map it with all the different actors and layers, and you won't do that. So we said, well, challenge accepted, and we invited stakeholders from and experts from different fields of the energy sector to our studio, and we discussed and we elaborated and defined. And with their help, finally, they designed a map of the German energy landscapes in all its complexity. And our job was to boil that down to graspable and understandable infographics. So I hope we managed that. And all combined with the hard facts and the infographics, it is possible even for lay people to understand what is going on and how the energy system has to be transformed to be into a decentralized system. And English version will be out in 2023, hopefully. So this information will be available for more people. And then again, Angela came around and said, we have to reconcile the emotions with the facts. And that was the one that was a starting point for us to get on the topic of mobility again. When you look at this, this is a white paper called 12 Insights into the Mobility Transformation. When you see something like that, well, what we said before, what are your expectations? In general, dense information, highly complex, and not much fun to read. So we said, well, give it a more emotional and personal touch and combine it with a special character. So we were thinking, well, from Agora, Employee of the Month, 16 times in a row, loved by everybody. It's Rudy, the office dog. So we managed to take the white paper and put it into an engaging and accessible comic format with Dax and Rudy as the main character. So, and again, here we combine infographics with storytelling. In the beginning, the book explains this. Everything which is in pink is infographics, and the bluish and yellow color scheme is for the story around. And main character is Rudy, and there's the daughter Greta and the grandfather, and the whole family is involved. And this is how the sub-story looks. And on the bottom right, you see there's an infographic as well. When you think how would the share, how would the space shared in the city between cars and bus and bicycles. And, yeah, and we put in some, we are talking about the transport of goods as well, which is an often underestimated proportion in the inner city traffic. And so to see this in a whole range. And the whole thing is available in English and for a free download at the website of Agora. I think we can provide that for you later on. And as my time is over, what are the lessons learned? So our lessons learned are: make your communication more colorful, make it fun, so it's more engaging for the people. And while doing this, you don't have to leave the hard stuff out. So, and it's worth talking a lot with the different stakeholders beforehand to make it a proper, to make them engaging, to engage the people. Beta testing is always good. Kids are perfect. They are straightforward and tell you if they don't like something. So in the end, it's hard work often, but it's worth it. So I'll end on the same note as I started. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nils. This was really, really beautiful and engaging. And I hope that this has triggered a lot of thoughts and ideas with all you who are with us today in this webinar. And we would like to have a little bit of interaction activity here. And if you like, you can pose questions. And I hope that the speakers will be able to answer some of them in the chat. But now I'd like you to kind of share with you through Menti. So now together with Francesca and Tamimi, we will try to use Menti as an interactive tool to ask you, what are the most interesting things that have caught, what has caught your interest in the presentation so far, so that we can listen to all of you giving your different perspectives of what was interesting to you in this. And hopefully this will work. Either you go to menti.com and load in a code, which is 19916682, or you can simply take your smartphone and give perhaps you can stay at the QR code for a minute here. So give people the opportunity to catch the QR code. You just use your camera, mostly with most phones. And then you can share with us what caught your interest in the presentation so far. This is obviously a learning journey. So yes.
Sorry for interrupting. In the meanwhile, maybe we can pick up some questions from the chat. We have one specifically for Niels from Susanne.
Yeah, I suggest Niels can pick that up maybe in the chat, so people can concentrate on giving their attention to trying to get into Menti, if that works. And for those who don't manage, I hope there will be interesting things to learn from what the others have found interesting.
Niels, can you read the question for you, or do you want me to help?
I can read it. I can answer it if you would like to. Well, we're trying to combine different sources and data. Mainly, often we have scientific partners like the ICAM, which is a partner in crime for us in several projects, or the one from Agora, where the white paper was the baseline, or the information, the hard facts, and we try to transform them into the into the design part. So that differs from project to project. Sometimes we help to gather the data, or from my side, I'm really interested in all the hacking community and making community. So, for example, there will be a conference this weekend called Bits and Trees, where the people from the sustainability background and the people with the tech background meet and mingle, and so these can be sources for us as well. So I hope that answered the question.
Thank you so much, Niels. Maybe, Tamara, if you could share the live responses so we can see that what the participants have shared with us all.
Yes, I'm trying to do that. It is loading. Maybe if there's another question in the meantime.
Okay.
After this Menti exercise, we will have a short break, so you have the opportunity to kind of take a break from all this interesting input and charge your batteries with whatever floats your boat, and get back to very, very interesting presentations after this from the cities, 4 cities that are with us.
How much time, Osa?
We will have
break.
Yeah, the break.
Yeah.
5 minutes.
5 minutes. Okay.
Yeah. So enough to get a cup of coffee or do whatever.
Go for a coffee.
Exactly. So.
And of course, if there are questions for the speakers, all the speakers, please put them in the chat or share the questions with us.
Yeah, I just posted the link to the download for the Future Ahoy infographic novel. So if anybody is interested.
Thank you, Niels. Okay.
So there seems to be some issue here, Tamami.
I was coming back to you. I apologize to everyone. I tested this so many times and I don't know what's happening, but perhaps we can move on to the break and then I can share the responses in the next Mentimeter exercise. We can go back to the responses at the end. I'm
Seems
so sorry.
like a really great idea. So let's take a break for 5 minutes and get back in 5 minutes. So by 58, we will get back here and share some of the responses that you've had. And please continue sharing what caught your interest in the present show so far. So 5 minutes break from now, and then we'll reconvene. Thank you for now. See you soon. So let's see if we can get the technical support functioning with our Menti question.
It seems also that we are still having some issues, so maybe we can move on the presentations and we can go back to the Mentis with at the end, when we will have the other two exercises and comment all of the replies that we had now and those that we'll have after the cities presentation.
Yeah, we could do that. And I just suggest you we catch like 2 or 3 voices about what caught your interest. No kind of long questions or reflections, but just a short few words from some of you. Would anyone like to share really quickly what caught your interest in the presentation so far? Just a couple of voices. You just unmute and say your thing.
Well, I will say that I love the idea of coming from Julio Lumbreras, the city as the system of systems, because that helps a lot, in the mindset that you have to establish in our organizations and in our cities. And I also like a lot the idea of communication, of fun communication and color communication of the hard stuff, without avoiding the hard stuff. So I took those great ideas from my colleagues and I'll put them in the work agenda.
Thank you so much, Fermin. Somebody else would like to share what caught your interest? Yes, I think Wolfgang.
Yeah, I like the idea also a lot. I think that the system approach is very important here, and that there's quite a lot shown on this bubble slide. One thing I would add, the spatial systems, which is the framework which allows to allocate where the emissions come from. I think that this is important to have a look at. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Wolfgang. Somebody else, a third voice?
Also, we have one question in the chat from Jacob.
Yes.
I think it was for Niels too, and it was about, do you also have screen-friendly solutions, like not a slide deck? And was
the question is what I think I don't get what is meant with screen friendly.
Maybe you need to elaborate. Jacob, are you here?
Yes, I'm here.
So maybe you can clarify the question in the chat for Niels to be able to respond to it. Thank you so much.
Very, very nice and very interesting. And I love books. I like having things in my hand.
Yeah.
But is it also possible to present this kind of books and the different material you've got?
We have a web shop, for example, where you can order the books. Just for here, I just put in the link the download link to the Future Ahoy book, which is available in English. And the other ones you can order from Editor Studio, so
yes. But my question is do you also have the gist of the books in some kind of presentation that could be screen friendly? And I mean, not in a slide deck, but in a more animated matter you can use on the screen.
You're thinking about putting it on a website or motion graphics or?
Yes.
Yeah, we do motion stuff as well, but as you saw on the slide deck, we have some small animations in there, and we can you can elaborate on that as far as you want. It's just a matter of time and money, as always.
Thank you so much for addressing that question.
If you want to have some materials from us, then just reach out to me, and I think we'll find a way.
Thank you, Niels. So now we come to the second part of this session. So I will leave it over to my dear colleague Francesca to introduce the part where we'll have some inspiration from 4 cities. Over to you, Francesca.
Thank you, Osa. Yes. What we would like to do now with you is to go through 4 examples of cities that are dealing with understanding the system in different ways. And what I really appreciated from the first presentation was that it was really interesting in terms of 2 at least main points. One, I would say, this idea of city as a system of system that is telling us that we need to understand everything in connection, one with the other component, or one with the component of services with the other area of services, and so on and so forth. While the second aspect I would like to underline for the first part was this idea in both presentations of how to involve citizens as both as a source or active agent for mapping something, but also as an agent that can be better engaged if they are in the condition of better understand the information that are describing the system. And this improvement in accessing the meaning of this information can be one of the key for the citizens to reach this important engagement into our cities and into our system, and to work together, as Julio said at the beginning, towards this transition. And yes, I asked the first city now, the city of Valencia, and Fermin to present your case, and also to shortly present your who you are and your role in the city of Valencia. Thank you. I think you are muted, Fermin.
Hi.
Yeah.
Now,
We
do you listen to me? Okay.
Yes.
Sorry for that. So thank you, Francesca, and thank you, NetZeroCities teams, for the invitation, and we are very honored from Valencia. Just quickly, let's start with some macro data, some context. Valencia is the 3rd most populated city in Spain. We are approximately 800,000 inhabitants. But in a metropolitan context, with the 1.5 million inhabitants, we are in our place in the world is in the coast of Mediterranean Sea, and we are surrounded by 2 natural reserves of biodiversity and a belt, a green belt that feeds the city. We have in our city the 4th busiest port in Europe. And our economic is based on services, tourism, agri-food industry, and innovation ecosystems. We also have, we are known as the Mediterranean cycle capital, with a huge infrastructure for urban cycle and metropolitan cycle rings. So that's what we are, and that's the context, of our understanding, in this project, in this mission city. Also, as every single city, in this webinar and this challenge, of the mission cities, we have our current GHG inventory that shows us some information, some knowledge about where does it come from, our main emissions. They come from, obviously, as like some other cities, from the private sector, and due to the high consumption of private transport in the metropolitan context, the people getting in the city and people getting out from the city, maybe, and our obviously in our energy consumption of homes. And we also know, we also understand, as every single city in this project, that our trends in a business as usual scenario, we will not take us to the success, you know, and to the mission. So we decided to get a better understanding of our city, knowing that the city is not the same. You know, the whole city is not the same. It's not equal. It's not homogeneous. You know? So we understood that we had to develop a deep research in 2021 about the capabilities and about the current situation of every single district and neighborhood, you know, in the city. And that's why we ask, you know, collaboration with the science, with the research teams, in order to know better our districts in the city under 19 criteria involving the technical, urban, social, economic, and environmental criteria, you know, to know better our city. And we found out that some districts are easier than others, and that we should think globally as a whole metropolitan area, but act locally. And that's really important for us in a context of finding out also some quick wins about this transition. We also understood that we had a lot of barriers, but also a few opportunities that we should take benefit, you know, from them. On the barriers side, we found that we have it's necessary to break silos internally and in a multi-level, as Julio Lumbreras was saying before, multi-level externally way. We have to go in beyond the political cycles. We have to keep always, even though we are acting locally in concrete projects and pilots and scaling those pilots, but we have always to have a metropolitan mindset. We have to be able to attract the private investment in this transition. We'll have to access to the data to pilot the transition, and sometimes the data, we don't have it, and the data is in some other sectors, and we should start redirecting our resources, our tools that we already have in order to get the mission. Those are the main barriers, you know, that we found out. And we understood that we have some opportunities in order to overcome these barriers. So understanding the system helped us to figure out in 2020 that this was the mission city, the climate mission, as we call it here in Valencia, in our communication way of doing things. Is a collective journey rather than an individual destination. So we had to engage the whole ecosystem. And in order to do so, to engage the whole ecosystem, we start in 2020 what we call our program of mission ambassadors, which are hundreds and hundreds of organizations, of enterprises that commit with the mission. And in a distributed leadership, we as a city hall, as a city council, we didn't want to be the leader of the transition. We wanted to share the leadership of that transition in a distributed way, you know, so any company committed with a mission could be the leader, you know, in the sector, in the technology, in their activity. Right now we have more than 150 ambassadors organizations representing more than 4,000 enterprises and 8,000 professionals from the Valencia ecosystem, and that's helping a lot in the work that we are doing. We also understood that a systemic approach will be needed, and we found out because we didn't know at the beginning that the 2030 agenda it was going to help us a lot. As we say here, 2030 agenda and the mission-oriented research and innovation are both sides of the same coin. Let me phrase it in some other way. There is no SDG coming from the 2030 agenda. There is no European mission, including the mission city, that will be achieved without considering that we need both sides of the same coin. We need bold public policies inspired through that 2030 agenda, decisions that yes or no oriented to the transition, and we also need the innovation, the research and innovation oriented to give us new ways of doing, new products, new services that when they work, we can scale them into the public policies. We also understood that we had to break our internal silos that we have in every big organization. So we create like a multi-area team, we call it mission team, and we create the concept of a mission day, which is really silly, but it helps a lot, you know, in the operational way. Every 15 days on Friday, the agendas gets free for those 15-20 people belonging to the mission team, and we get together in our innovation center to work in the different working packages of the mission. We don't have to arrange the following meeting. It's just the way we do it, you know, periodically. So, we also understood in that context that we have to create new skills, new capacities that we didn't have 2 years ago, and we have to hack the system, no? to be hackers and to be entrepreneurial minds inside of our organization. Just to finish, two main examples. We have to learn how to buy how to boost public procurement of innovation. We have to learn how to buy innovation. And today we are boosting, you know, our first public procurement of innovation oriented to the climate mission on 8 big challenges: the mobility, the energy, the urbanization, the economy, the renaturalization, the adaptation, the smart governance, and the social involvement and education. We have 161 proposals coming from the innovation ecosystems, and the commitment to spend and to buy, you know, 2 million euros for PPI in the next 4 years. So that's something that we have to develop as new skill. And also we have to develop new skills of technology. We understood in this understanding the system phase that the digital twins, which is technology, and I come from that side of knowledge, will help us to understand and discover opportunities that we can have on the city. If we could visualize the energy consumption of every single building in the city based on their activity, on their type of construction, and based on the year of the construction, we could also visualize the potential energy self-sufficiency of each building. We could easily know the potential of GHG emissions reductions of each building and get better in our decisions, searching for major impacts. And when we apply the energy building refitting local policies. So that's something that technology will help us do, and that's some skills and some capabilities that we have to develop. And just to end, we found out that in the climate mission, no city starts from scratch, no? And this is really, really important to understand the system and our capabilities before planning action. And that's all I had to share with you.
Thank you, Fermin, for the presentation. And it was very, very interesting what you did, starting from understanding your district and your neighborhoods. So I would like to ask our people in the room if you have questions for Fermin. My first question to you, my first reaction to you is really, especially about the distributed leadership, the establishment of the team, a multi-area team, as well as the program for the new skills. How much were really affected by the analysis of your systems, or were they coming from something different from the data that the cities were telling you?
Well, I would say, Francesca, that it comes from that analysis of our system and searching, what things we could do in order to get our barriers, a little bit lower, and in that. So all those actions, probably I would say that 100% of the actions come from understanding first the system, because we don't have too much time to fail, in our first actions. We knew, we understood that we had to engage the ecosystem, and that's not something that we were going to be able to do by ourselves. And we understood that if we want to leader the transition, it was not going to work, because we are Valencia City Council, and probably there are some other sectors that they don't understand me. They don't trust, whatever it comes, from the public sector. So we have to be generous in the meaning of let facilitate, let make easy some other leaderships in some other sectors, technologies, fields, and activities.
Thanks, Fermin. Some question from the audience, let's say. Okay, we have Charlotte in the chat. Charlotte, if you want to speak, you can turn on the mic. Otherwise, I can read for you.
Hello. Yes. Yeah, I just wondered if Fermin, it was a great presentation. I wondered if Fermin could just say a little bit about how the city is working with the port, because obviously that's has a huge influence on the emissions and the rest of it relating to the city. But thank you, it was great.
Thank you, Charlotte. Well, we have if in the city you have a port, or you have like a main infrastructure that gives huge emissions, you have a problem in this mission. Obviously, that's obviously. So we decide to, and knowing that it's like right now we have like a political issue on the relationship between port and the city. We include the port in our mission team, because they are working hard, and they are also working hard on the decarbonization of their activity. So, for example, in the call for 100 European cities that we are all involved, we include the mission, the port mission, that they do it in their individual decision to get a decarbonized port before 2030. So that's a good example of what I meant before when we were talking about the distributed leadership. We want them to be. We will help them to be the best port, in the climate transition, in that way. And we are also thinking, but that's something that we are thinking. We are not ready to say that we will do it, because I insist it's a political issue, in the city on that we would like the port be included in the climate city contract. We would like to include the actions that the port is facing in order to get the mission done, in the same way that we want the universities to be involved and the businesses to be involved. We don't want to avoid that relationship. We want to get them included, and we want them to be the leaderships, in the port activity.
Okay, so I see that Wolfgang has one question maybe, but I would like to move to Bologna. Maybe Wolfgang, you can write in the chat.
Sure, yeah.
Thank you for understanding. And thank you, Fermin. Maybe we can now ask Marika Milani from the city of Bologna to come and share with us your experience in understanding the system and what you are building on the top of this understanding. Thank you again, Fermin. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. I try to share my video. Like just a second. So I think you can see it.
Yes, we can see.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much. So I start a brief speech about Bologna, just a very, very fast system, a geographic system. We are exactly the half of Valencia. I found so many similar barriers and problems, so I'm very happy to share with the colleague some common problem. Bologna is, of course, a city in the northern part of Italy, and we have 400,000 inhabitants, but the surrounding metropolitan area reach 1 million inhabitants. So we have so many city users in our city, and we have a very important hub in our city, that is the Central Railway Station, that is the main railway junction in Italy, all over Italy. And we have the 7th largest airport in the nation, in the state. And I work for municipality of Bologna, and we have 4,200 employees, so it's a pretty huge organization. And the same mayor of the city is the mayor of the metropolitan area. So this is a system of government, a common system of government. So I have a big challenge now, because I have to summarize in a few minutes a long history, a long road from 15 years ago to nowadays for our system. I'm sorry, some slide have some text in Italian, but I try to translate it for you. And we have a long history, and so we started with Kyoto Protocol, then Covenant of Mayors, and we built our first SEAP, so Sustainable Energy Action Plan, in 2012. Then we added the Mobility Strategic Plan, then the Energy and Climate Action Plan in 2021, and then the Green Plan, and then the PUG, we love acronyms, that is the Urbanistic General Plan, always in the same year, 2021. So we have all the system of rules of plan of the city that goes toward the neutrality. But of course, we have to look at the data. So I can say the cumulative reduction between 2005 and 2030 is estimated now at 44%. So not neutrality. So we have to boost and accelerate some action, many action, to reach the goal of the mission. So we have already a systemic approach. I listened at the former presentation about system of systems, so I very, very agree this vision and this approach. So we add, and then we see what we will have in our CCAP building sector, tertiary sector, local energy production, industry, mobility, and public facilities. This was our area of interest of collecting data and balancing the CO2 emissions. And I'm sorry, sometimes the presentation has lost the scheme, but you see the very important numbers. total emission is 4.72 CO2 tons for each person in a year. And I want to highlight to you that the buildings are the 70.5% of the total. Transport are 17% of the total. I want to say that because for us was a big surprise that during pandemic and right after pandemic, where there was a very, very strict lockdown in Italy, of course, as other country knows, we have no a loss of CO2 emissions. So this was a big signal about the importance of buildings in emission. So we have to concentrate our strength, our goal in renewing the the stock of building. So going very fast, this is our trend in emissions. You see the, I'm sorry for the Italian, but it's very understandable. So the red is all the tertiary system. The purple is resident home houses, is a building system, so is a big stock of emission. And the green is private transport. So you see that we are going down, but slow. And we are in the last 3 years of this survey in a plateau, we can say. So we have to boost really the actions. And the last survey is 2018. So we have to, of course, update also our emissions scenarios. And what we are already doing in the last years, new regulation for existing building to push the buildings, the private buildings, to high quality efficiency levels. Regulation for new buildings and districts. We have always to distinguish the old buildings, the existing buildings, and the new, because of course we have a huge historical center. So of course, same rule for a new building and a historical, maybe a heritage building is impossible. So we have to distinguish the two levels. Electrification of local public transport and sustainable mobility, like bicycling. Transformation of public lighting into LED system. And development of a big green infrastructure for mitigate the CO2 emissions. And what we are settling now in this system of systems. So you can see these pillars. Of course, they are pillars, but they have to be crossed each other. We have action in mobility and transportation, like the decarbonization of public transport, and Bici plan, that is a plan for bicycle, for moving by bicycle in the city. Efficiency in energy, so public buildings and residential buildings that need to be renewed, as I said, is 70% of emission. And develop new positive energy district in the city. And I go very fast, but public lighting and waste, a new system of production of energy, power to gas, from waste to gas, or installation of system that product green hydrogen, or boost the circular economy of the city. So waste is one of our pillars. And production of renewable energy. So replacing all the system, especially in a public building, with renewable source of energy. and promotion of energy communities, and a lot of cross-cutting project. We need to break the silos, as my colleague told before me. And the barriers. We have many barriers. We have physical, because of the location, geographic location. We are in the flatland, the Po flatland, that is one of the highest polluted area in Italy. We have an old building stock that need to be renewed, and many historical heritage building or landscape protection system in the hills. So we need to balance the rules with the possibility of renewing the building. We have the same problem of Valencia and many other cities, I think, in silo thinking and monosectoral vision inside the organization, and too much bureaucracy. I'm not saying nothing of new, I think, but we have also some lack of data. And I can say we have a GIS system, we have a 3D model of the city, we have many sources of data, but we need now to integrate this system. We don't need a photography or just a moment to catch a data set. We need to update in every system has to update to have a perfect representation, a modeling of the city. And we have barriers in tools, financial tools, or financial new ways of building PPP, public-private partnership. And we have to build community, energy communities. There are some, but they are not working well. So we need to improve and boost this system. And also think about incentive for citizens and enterprises. Who is involved in our system? I'm approaching the heart of my presentation. In this moment, many subjects. The Bologna municipality I represent now here is, of course, our Urban Innovation Foundation that help us in all the process and to involve citizens. That is a pillar for us in our action, and an agency for sustainable energy. This is the core of the group of leading the process to neutrality. Then public company and facilities. ERA is the provider of energy and the manager of waste system in the city. ACER is the public house managing system, airport, university, etc. Private enterprises, professional bodies and association, local government, of course, province, region, state, and a net of 9 Italian cities that has been selected in the 100 cities for the mission. And later I tell you more about this. This is the very heart of my presentation. I'm sorry that is in Italian, but I try to explain to you. I've just put some tag in English. You see 4 gradient of green. We have the first step that is federate. So involve all these partners, all these stakeholders to sign a climate city contract. What I want to say about the climate city contract is that is not a moment, is not an act, is not a paper signed, but is a process. So in this slide, I want to show you that for us, the climate city contract is the beginning of a process, not the end, not the goal. So we have to co-project and build together an investment plan that involves public and private system with measurable results and indicator. And we have an open platform that dialogue in this investment plan, so is transparent to the city. And we have to measure the darkest green in the bottom. We have to measure and have an outcome balance. Then I have a slide to show you the single part for outcome. And I want to take your attention to the right side, that is Citizen Climate Assembly and plans and rules are two systems. Of course, of planner and rules I have already said, so I go further. We have to start this year with the new system of participation, that is this Citizen Climate Assembly, which is the new about, we have a long story of participation of citizen, but this assembly has the new characteristic that is randomly the people are chosen randomly from the citizen of Bologna and city user. So we extract 100 citizens and together build an assembly with a team to discuss and bring these results to the city council. So this is the ultimate tool that we build for involved citizens. And I go a little faster. We need to develop a better knowledge of the city. So building emission profile. So we have a model similar to Valencia, but I'm very, very interested in seeing Valencia system with overlaying layer of energy profile of the building. And we, in our goal, there is the construction of a digital twin with that dynamic update, that is the continuously updating data. Simplify rules and bureaucracy. Of course, we have a lot of problem with historical buildings and landscape protection areas. We have to balance protection and climate challenge, of course. We have a huge historical center, and half of the city is up the hills, so as a landscape protection, of course. We have to strengthen the capacity building in municipality. So we have already started with intersectoral work groups, multidisciplinary trainings, etc. Planning and programming, we want to strengthen the measure of outcome and give all the municipality common target and indicators with mission oriented, of course. We want to involve stakeholder and citizen and increase nets and awareness. And we want to build also a one-stop shop for assist citizen and enterprises. And we want to improve new financial models and incentives. And I answer here very fastly to a couple of questions that NetZeroCity put us, that is how the system understanding was useful. Of course, what was very useful to focus on main barriers. And I know and I see that all the city have very, very similar barriers that helped us to recognize the problem and turn them in a plan of action. And exchanging experience between the cities like today is very, very important for opening our vision. And we are co-coordinating a net of all the Italian cities that are involved in the neutrality mission, that are Bergamo, Bologna, Firenze, Milano, Padova, Parma, Prato, Roma, and Torino. And these cities are with us in co-projecting an action, a system of actions to break one of the main barriers, that is the silos model organization in our municipalities. So we want to develop a new model of governance of municipality and new systemic approach. And each city implements a challenge that is complementary to other, of course, and we can reuse the system together. And
really fascinating content, Marika, but we still have 2 cities to go. So
sorry. So I'm closing. So this is just the tool we will use, but nothing of more than what I say. So just the last, sorry for my too long presentation. We want to monitoring the CO2 emission, of course, the amount of investment, the saving for public and private system, and the social impact. So I've finished.
Thank you very much, Marika, for the great presentation. I think we don't have time to pick up some questions, but you have many in the chat. You can ask to them, please do it.
Okay,
and I'll firstly ask Ivan Ivanovic from the city of Zagreb to share your experience. Please, Ivan, come on the stage and tell us about Zagreb.
Yes, well, hello everyone, to all the participants. Hello, Francesca, thanks for the invite. As they usually say in these 2-hour long meetings with numerous presenters, there should always be the one who's shorter than anticipated. So I think that baton will pass on to me now. So I think we'll make up for any possible loss of schedule currently. Greetings from a very rainy city of Zagreb. So if I can just share my screen, it says host disabled sharing.
The button is on the bottom of your screen.
Yes, when I click it, it says host disabled participant screen sharing. So
okay, and I don't know if Barbara can help us with the technical support, because Ivan is not cost, maybe. I don't know.
Of course, just give me a second.
Sure.
Thank you, Barbara.
While we wait, just a short, I mean, my presentation is not that long. I will focus on one live demo, actually, of a tool that I think will be of interest to colleagues from other cities to basically show how certain data can be assembled and done and then represented in a nice overview. So with that, okay, here we go. Share screen, F5, and then I switch. Okay, do you see it good?
It works fine. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, so yes, this know thyself. That's the mantra of my short talk today. So a short overview of city of Zagreb and everything that we're doing on a local level to what do we do to get insight into various energy and climate profiles, as we like to call it, on a local city level. So a brief overview of the city of Zagreb. Here are some numbers. Some are updated, some are not. We had a census last year. The data is still flowing in. So the city of Zagreb is, I think all of you know, is the capital of Croatia. It is the economic and let's say socio-economic and demographic powerhouse of Croatia. It is spread out across an area of 640 kilometers. It sits basically in between River Sava and Medvednica Mountain, and is surrounded by 4 neighboring counties. So we are close to 800,000 citizens in the let's say narrower administration area. But like a colleague from Valencia and Bologna said, basically the wider metropolitan area is close to a million. The city of Zagreb has a special status because it's both a county and a city. It's the only one in Croatia with that special status. And with regards to energy and climate, city of Zagreb has been basically at the beginning of the European local energy push. So we joined the Covenant of Mayors back in 2008, and then joined the expanded Covenant of Mayors for Energy and Climate back in 2016. So again, a brief, from my end, a brief overview of what we do on energy and climate standpoint. City's first basically sustainable energy action plan was enacted in 2010. And Croatia's first SECAP basically was enacted in June 2019 for city of Zagreb, with being basically when I look at it retrospectively, with the unlucky coincidence that that SECAP was enacted 6 months before EU Green Deal, which then completely overhauled the energy and climate legislation and everything. And of course, as you know, everything stemming from the Fit for 55 package onwards means that we'll have to update our overall, let's say, policies sooner rather than later. Law mandated activities such as energy efficiency action plans are done every 3 years, with annual energy efficiency reporting done every year. I will say that with regards to data, which is the focus of my short talk, the energy balance data collection is basically the key raw data input, and that is something, for example, that has helped us immensely when we applied for the NetZeroCities call to be selected as a city, because we had a deep insight from 2010 onwards into basically all aspects of our energy, both consumption, production, emissions, etc. City of Zagreb was unfortunately struck by a devastating earthquake in March 2020, and then felt the serious shaking from the earthquake in Sisak, Moslavina County, which is 50 kilometers away from Zagreb, in December of that year. So the city is basically now in a let's say transformational stage, where the damage from the earthquake needs to be repaired, and hopefully it will be done in a build back better way, and not just to basically patch up everything that has happened before the earthquake. So with that regard, and because of COVID and everything, 2020 and 2021 were, let's say, capital less intensive with regards to any sort of investments for the energy and climate part, but we use that opportunity to basically, let's say, hunker down and develop an in-depth energy and climate model for City of Zagreb for 2030 and 2050. And that has helped immensely, because City of Zagreb basically now has an in-depth LEAP-based model, the LEAP software, of all of its basically emissions, consumptions, and everything in a single database, which can then be used to model various types of impact. We also did something that we were not obligated to do, but we did it anyway, and that's a comprehensive greenhouse gas emissions inventory for our City of Zagreb administrative area. And that has proven to be basically incredibly useful, because that's our, let's say, mirror for success in the end. So how are we doing anything basically to achieve emissions reductions that we need in the administrative area of the City of Zagreb? And of course, my focus for today, the Zagreb Energy Atlas, is something that was developed in 2019, first as a study with our Energy Institute Hrvoje Požar here in the city of Zagreb, on how to increase the energy efficiency in the city of Zagreb, and set up basically a GIS database. Energy Atlas is a really powerful tool, because it is basically an immense database of all networked piped energy sources, so natural gas, district heating and electricity, plus water across the whole City of Zagreb administrative area. So data delivery and management are done through GDPR compliant contracts with all the relevant companies. So the district heating company, the natural gas DSO, the electricity DSO, and Zagreb Waterworks company. That initial set of data has been put on a less powerful platform from 2019 all the way to end of 2021, and then in 2022 we basically migrated the whole system on a powerful GIS platform, which is basically part of a wider City of Zagreb Smart City Hub activities, and it's been basically ongoing development and refinement from the city level. And it's, I think, a key tool for robust energy and climate policy integration into spatial planning, because, as colleagues previously mentioned, there are different layers of decision making, so local, regional, national, and then EU level. Most, I will say, if not all, energy and climate related legislation is being enacted by the national government. However, the spatial planning part is usually, at least in Croatia, delegated to their local and regional level. And here the City of Zagreb actually has the most mandate to enact direct change let's say, directly through the city assembly without quote unquote waiting for the national government to do something. Funny tidbit, we also did a scaled down version of this tool for public use, and it's proven, let's say, quite popular because citizens can see their see their consumption and everything. So it's been quite nice to basically in these trying times to put some raw data into citizens' hands about energy consumption. So a brief live demo on my end now would be here. So this is the tool. It's on a GIS platform. And before I go in depth on this, this is the view that basically me and my colleagues can see from inside the city. This is the public view. So we have for now 3 tools, out of which one is the Energy Atlas for public use. The other 2 are calculation of solar potential for almost all roofs in the city of Zagreb, which is based on the 3D model of the city of Zagreb. And citizens can follow the ongoing efforts with regards to energy refurbishment of public buildings. So kindergarten, schools, hospitals that are in the program of energy refurbishment from 2018 onwards can be followed not in real time, but close to real time with regards to how their progress is going. So the Energy Atlas is this. It's basically a whole city of Zagreb map where we have basically natural gas, electricity, district heating, and water. Colleagues are currently updating the water data, so it's not currently available. What this allows us is to basically go on a city district level or even lower parts and basically select either individual building to then see its data and consumption in terms of natural gas and all 3 energy sources as well as water, or even better to basically just a sec, to basically highlight numerous districts even, and then see how their consumption profile is changing, what's the split between a residential area, business area, etc., district heating, electrical energy. So this is primarily a tool that has basically unraveled I will call it sins of the past on one end, so overlap between natural gas and district heating pipelines, which should not have happened. I need to basically explain the context there, because City of Zagreb is the owner of the natural gas DSO and waterworks company. But electricity and district heatings are provided by the national level owned incumbent here in Croatia, the HEP group. So there's always been in the past 20 or 30 years, basically, let's say, to put it mildly, a not so coordinated approach with regards to infrastructure development. But this tool is one of the key tools that we are using to basically develop the new spatial plan for the city of Zagreb with regards to energy and climate, the energy consumption, and everything from that end. So this is one of the tools that has proven to be of an immense value for system and energy modelers here in the city of Zagreb to basically develop the next generation spatial planning and other legislation that will directly contribute to the net zero city goal. And I will stop there. If there are any questions, I will be, of course, happy to share both in chat or later. But to get things going, I'm here. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Ivan. I think that one of the big requests you have is if you can share the link to the tool, and other questions you have in the chat, I ask you to go there and reply to the people. Thanks a lot. I will ask now Elena from the city of Espoo to come into the room and present the experience of Expo. And thanks again, even for the experience from Zagreb. Very interesting. Congratulations.
And people who will need to go now will obviously do so. But since we still have the city of Espoo and some small content to go, so for those of you who have the possibility to stay, that is, of course, what we hope for. Thank you.
Yes, do you have my slides? Hello, greetings from Finland. Thank you for this opportunity. I'm waiting for my slides to show up, but I can introduce myself meanwhile. So my name is Helena Kyrki, and I work as the manager for sustainable development at the city of Espoo. And I know we are a bit behind the schedule, so I will try to give you a quick overview of how we are working towards understanding the systems that are most relevant to our climate goals. Still waiting for my slides.
Sorry, it was on me.
Okay, no problem.
No, because I was expecting you to project. My fault. Sorry.
Sorry.
Okay. Okay.
Yes, a couple of words about Espoo. I think the slides will show up just in a minute. So we are the second largest city in Finland, part of the Helsinki metropolitan area, and quite a young city compared to all these great historical cities that have presented before me. Our 5 city centers have mainly been built in the past 60 years. And during that time, our population has grown from 100,000 to 300,000 inhabitants, and it still continues to grow. We are also a city. The nature is always near, so we have quite large areas that are covered by forest and even a national park inside the city's boundaries. Okay, now I think you can see the slides as well, thank you. But apart from being a growing and a green city, Espoo is quite well known for its innovation community. We are one of the biggest technology hubs in the Nordics and home for many major Finnish companies such as Nokia, Kone and Neste, research institutions as Aalto University and VTT Technical Research Center, and a home for active startup community. And this year we were once again shortlisted in the semifinals for the European Capital of Innovation Awards, and will be competing for the title later this fall, together with some other great cities, such as our friends from Valencia, present here today. Next slide, please. So understanding how we need to change the system to reach our climate goals, which is the climate neutrality by 2030, begins with understanding our main challenges and opportunities. Being a Nordic city, nearly half of our total emissions come from heating. And this is the topic that we have been working most with and where we are also making the biggest progress. Another big source of emissions is transport. As I mentioned, we are a network city with 5 city centers and also part of a wider metropolitan area with a lot of people commuting daily to work to Helsinki and vice versa. So the modal share of private cars is still close to 50%. A third challenge is how to manage sustainable city growth. As a growing city, we need more homes and services for our new citizens, but meanwhile, we also want to cut our emissions, total emissions, and to preserve biodiversity and access to local nature. That is extremely important to our residents. On the opportunities side, we have identified some of our key strengths as a community. Our city leaders have quite a strong political commitment to sustainability and climate goals. And as already mentioned, we have an active innovation community with a lot of knowledge and a lot of potential for developing new solutions that are both sustainable and commercially successful. And we are also aiming to direct the city growth along public transportation connections to allow for the preservation of natural values. The city is investing quite heavily on public transport and especially in new train and tram metro lines. Next, please. A key tool for developing our understanding on the urban systems that contribute to our sustainability goals, as well as ensuring resources for this work, has been the Sustainable Espoo program. It is a development program that supports the implementation of our city strategy, builds a vision, partnerships, and shared commitments. It unites political groups and city administration, launches concrete projects and actions, and monitors the progress. Then 10 years ago, we started with only a program manager, and now we are a team of 30 people working on our third consecutive program term. It is a program owned by the mayor, and this is the first term when our steering group includes representation of all political groups of our city council. Next, please. As I mentioned earlier, heating, and particularly district heating, creates the largest share of our climate emissions. And it is a topic we have been working on for several years now, so it is a good example of how understanding the system and working with stakeholders to agree to common targets and to set actions and milestones can lead to transformations in the system. The city of Espoo has signed a joint commitment with the local energy provider, state-owned energy company Fortum, and created a climate neutral district to create a climate neutral district heating system by 2030. In our area, the district heating has 250,000 end users, so the effects on our emissions are going to be substantial and already have been, because new investments have already been made and fossil fuels replaced by solutions such as bioenergy, excess heat from wastewater, and heat pumps. In 2025, we have an intermediate milestone to end the use of coal completely. This spring, Microsoft and Fortum announced a new cooperation project in which Microsoft will build a new data center in Espoo and Fortum will build a connected large-scale waste heat unit for the district heating network. And this will help us to further reduce our emissions on a massive scale. It highlights the importance of attracting private investments to these goals. And at the systemic level, we also expect it to bring co-benefits such as the digitalization of businesses and creating local jobs. Next one. Trust and collaboration are essential ways of how we are looking to develop Espoo. Therefore, I would like to highlight partnerships and the value of really getting to know the actors that can affect and contribute to different city systems. The Finnish society has relatively low hierarchies, and being a medium-sized city in a small nation, we have the advantage of a certain closeness. As a city, we want to participate in the collaboration as a platform, but also as an actor that brings together these different stakeholders. So currently we are running a project where we map and develop impactful ecosystems in the fields that are connected to our climate targets. And our goal is to have identified by next year 100,000 partners, 100 partners and their roles in the ecosystem, and to find ways to work with them to make these ecosystems more impactful. An example of a topic that we're currently working on is e-mobility and the role of public and private actors in providing the charging infrastructure for electric vehicles. Citizen participation is also a major cross-cutting theme in the Sustainable Espoo program. And this year, we made an open invitation to residents from different backgrounds, including vulnerable groups, to come together to develop and test a new model of resident inclusion for resolving sustainability challenges together with the city. Next, please. As I mentioned earlier, this is the third term of the Sustainable Espoo program. And when we first started 10 years ago, the city's climate targets were not identified as major strategic goals for the city. However, understanding our city systems, for example, of the local economic actors and the innovation community, how they can contribute to our climate targets, or what co-benefits becoming a climate neutral city can bring to our society and to our citizens, has led us to understand the strategic value of this work. So as a result, in 2017, our city council agreed on a target of becoming climate neutral city by 2030. And last year, this was further emphasized in our new strategy as one of the city's 7 key targets for the ongoing council term. Next one. This is my last one. So how to monitor the progress when dealing with complex city systems, or like system of systems, as said before today. It's obviously not an easy task. For a Sustainable Espoo program, we have developed a set of 29 indicators, some of which focus more on direct outcomes of the work that we are carrying out, or the projects, and some of them focus more on changes at systemic level in our operating environment. But it's not a fixed list. We see this as a constant learning process, and we are working to find new indicators to add to this list. So therefore, we are cooperating with research institutions to gain new knowledge. Some examples of that include a study carried out in 2020, where the consumption-based emissions for 15 cities were measured for the first time in Finland. And another example is a carbon handprint manual for cities and regions that was published last year. Carbon handprint refers to the positive climate impact of using a product or a service. It's an approach that has mainly been used for businesses, but in this study, the method was applied and modified for cities in order to assess community-level positive climate actions. So as a city, we believe that our biggest impact on global level emissions will be through the innovations and technologies that are first developed in Espoo and then exported to other countries. I think this goes very much in the spirit of the city's mission, with the 100 cities working as innovation hubs for other cities to follow suit. Therefore, we are really happy to be part of this mission, and we can move to the last thank you slide. Really happy to have the opportunity to keep sharing and learning with all of you. And thanks to the colleagues from Valencia, Bologna, and Zagreb. There have been really nice learnings to take home from today's session. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you all of the cities, and thank you, Elena, for this last very effective presentation, and also for waiting for the others. What to do, Asa, now? We have eventually the Menti, at least one that we can launch and collect and share the results after all via email with the attendees.
Yes.
We would like really to collect your feedback, and it's still useful for us also to share in an asynchronous way, let's say, the results that we will have. We can also prepare a kind of a short report of this webinar with all of the links to the tools that you can find on the NetZeroCities platform that can help you to start to work in this area of understanding the system, but also the presentations that we had today, and also the resources and the tools that the cities were sharing with us, and also the colleagues in the first part of the webinar. And it is a kind of a summary that we want to share with you, so to say, to have time enough to go back, reflect, and even use what is interesting for you, for the attendees. What do you think, Asa?
Yeah, I think that let's invite everyone to share what your takeaways from this session is in the Menti chat, and we can send it to all of you. And I think it's been a very valuable session, and I've been enjoying it very, very much. And I do think it has been kind of a sign of the potential of these kinds of exchanges, because there has been a lot going on in the chat, a lot of interesting interactions, and loads of potential for helping each other getting faster to climate neutral cities together. So thank you so much for all of the speakers and all of you who attended today. And the material will be sent out to all you and shared afterwards. So thank you also to Francesca for co-hosting, for co-moderating this with me. It has been a pleasure. Thank you so much, and talk to you all soon. Bye.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Asa, and thank you to the speakers. Really, really nice, good, and fruitful presentations.
Thank you.